Every B2B podcast sounds the same. Cookie cutter strategies, corporate buzzwords, high level theory that sounds smart but changes nothing. Meanwhile, the real game changers are out there breaking every rule in the playbook and crushing it. They're not following best practices. They're building their own path and winning in the ways that experts said wouldn't work. These are the rebels you need to hear from, the ones with tactics you can actually use tomorrow. This is Burn the Playbook. Burn everything that's holding you back. Welcome in. I'm Marc Crosby. This is Burn the Playbook. My guest today is Keenan, the CEO of a sales growth company, a Forbes top 50 social seller, and one of the most cited sales experts in the world. He's the author of Not Taught and the best-selling book Gap Selling, with his new book, Gap Prospecting, on the way in 2026. Today, we'll talk about tearing down old sales habits, replacing them with problem-centric selling, and rethinking prospecting so it actually connects with buyers. What's up, Keenan?
How you doing, man? Thanks for having me.
Doing well. Glad to have you here. So who did you write Gap Prospecting for 2026?
For anybody doing outbound, right? I mean, for anybody and everybody who's responsible for outbound, SDRs, BDRs, AE, full service AEs, in a lot of ways, marketing, anybody responsible for outbound and outbound messaging.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was going to ask you if is it more for just salespeople, marketing you mentioned. Should CEOs read the book? Should anybody in business read the book? I read a lot of sales books myself, and I tend to think that not just salespeople should read some of these things because everybody should be connected in one way or another with that strategy. So would you think it would be good for executive leadership to read this as well?
Yes, to the extent that they have an outbound motion, right? So gap prospecting is very specific to the outbound motion, very specific. If you only got to read one, then read Gap Selling, because Gap Selling addresses selling in its entirety. So Gap Prospecting takes the problem-centric concept of Gap Selling and shows you how to be a problem-centric prospector or outbounder. So I guess the medium answer is, if you're an executive and you have teams that have to do outbound, then absolutely you should read it, because I believe that one of the disconnects in the world is senior management gets disconnected from the actual execution. Sorry, guys, I love you, smart as fuck, but you get up on these little pedestals and you stop understanding how it works. And then you expect your ability to influence how it works is diminished because you rely on a person who has to rely on a person to rely on a person. Then you guys wonder why you can't execute. So for those execs who believe in the concept of, I don't have to do it, but I better understand it, prospect is a great one, but Gap Selling is the one that'll lay the greatest foundation if you can only read one.
Understood. And so gap prospecting is obviously not a new concept. So why gap prospecting right now for you for this book?
Well, I think for a couple of reasons. One, so much has changed in prospecting. The whole idea of one more call and activity-based. I sit down and I say, oh, well, I have these many, I have to make this much money. My close rate's this, conversion rate this, so I'll make these calls and I'll make it. No, man. People don't pick up the phone anymore. One of the big observations we made is, in an effort to scale, we stopped focusing on the quality of the messages. We stopped focusing on upskilling the capabilities of the team. We just threw a load of tools in their hands. Outreach, sales loft, Zoom info, all this stuff, and they're just pounding buyers. We start the book with, when I started cold calling in the 90s, I would say I probably got about a 60 or 70% connect rate. Maybe it was lower than that, but it was a shit ton. I could make calls all day and talk to a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? And so I remember thinking this, if I messed up my introduction or I messed up my message, I could make 7, 8, 9 calls and I'd get 3 or 4 more connections in that period of time. So I would just keep working on it. Now you could literally make 100 calls in a day and maybe talk to 2 people. Maybe. So connect rates are different. People aren't responding to emails. It requires an entirely different approach and message to get their attention and get them to pay attention. So we figured, plus AI's come out, so the whole AI component for us. So I wrote it. And the other one is, everybody was always product centric. Everybody's my product. And we recognize the same thing we did for Gap Selling, that problem centric selling is the best way to do it. So we taught people how to leverage their problems to prospect, not their product.
Makes sense. I noticed in the last couple of books, you did it yourself. At least that's at least what was on the front of it. You brought in a co-author for this particular one. Why did you bring in Will for this particular book?
Sometimes you get too close to things and you don't see what you don't see. And Will actually came to me and he said, hey, we should do a gap prospecting book. And I was like, I don't know. And he was compelling. He was very compelling. And I think one of my concerns was, I understood prospecting. but I hadn't really had to do it myself in a while. And he was very compelling in helping understand that he had really done a lot of the tactical stuff. So between my framework of problem centricity and how to leverage that, and he could apply the tactical elements, it was a good partnership.
So I believe that you developed the problem-centric operating system. Tell me a little bit more about that, and I think how you've applied that over many, many years of success.
Oof, that's a big question, bro.
So I imagine that ties a lot of what you've already written before, a lot of what it goes into prospecting. So take as long as you need.
Oof, that's a big one. Okay, so the problem-centric operating system came out of the recognition that if in the old school everybody was product-centric and gap selling recognized you needed to move to problem-centric, we felt that in the world of sales enablement and actually making this stuff stick, that everybody was product-centric in how they trained their salespeople, what they trained their salespeople on, how they built sales enablement models and how they built sales enablement environments, that you needed a problem-centric operating system as well. So once we determined that problem centricity need to be at the center of your sales enablement, which should drive how you train salespeople, we then came to the conclusion. I was like, well, wait a minute. Sales enablement sales organizations made a mistake when they went to sales enablement, because what they started to do and what they leaned very heavily on was learning and development. They hired learning and development experts. They hired behavioral experts. They hired past professors, people in the learning and development world who could build curriculums, build trainings. You see what I'm saying? And I realized that wasn't enough. And then it became disconnected from sales operations, which then was disconnected from the sales team and sales leadership. And so they do all this training, and the metrics they started to use for the training was just atrocious. I will never forget this. Quick side note, and I won't even say the name of the company, but they're in serious trouble. And I'm not surprised, right? Because we were a finalist in a sales opportunity with them. And I'm talking to the head of sales enablement. There were a bunch of people on the phone, but the head of sales enablement, and we're breaking down all the business problems they have. And we're showing how our product or service is going to address those business problems and fix things like poor discovery, fix things like low win rates. Like, we're really talking about the dirt, right? And she goes, well, I have a question for you. And I said, what? This was her first question. Global head of sales enablement. And her question was, does your online training platform integrate with our LMS? I was like, okay, can you help me understand why? And she said, well, it's really important for us to have a single point of entry. I was like, these fucking people have no clue what they're doing. If that is this high, single point of entry, then at another point in the conversation, we were talking about metrics, and it was clear they weren't measuring things like win rates. They weren't measuring added pipeline. They weren't able to connect all their efforts to the outcomes, right? And they weren't. And I said to her, do you guys do any metrics? You measure anything? Because I'm not hearing. Oh, yeah, we totally do. And I said, what's the number one metric you're managing now? And she said, oh, we've actually moved it. We're really proud. It's number of certifications and number of people who take the training. Mm-hmm. That's what they were measuring. So why am I telling you all this? Once I understood this, we realized that there were actually 3 layers to a proper sales organization when it comes to enablement. The skills layer is only one piece. That's where you teach them everything. But the enablement needs to then move into what we call the opportunity layer. And that's where you have to start building processes and tools, in which is also obviously a process, evaluation elements, etc., to evaluate what you taught them in the real world setting. So role play is still in the skills layer. However, video review, deal review, passive and active reinforcement. So passive is just something we also just came up with. Passive reinforcement is you can't do something in our process if you don't know what we taught you, right? So I don't even have to do active reinforcement. It's, hey, go do this. Well, if you can't do that, then I already know you didn't get through the training piece, right? You're not comprehending. So then we built that layer up, and then the last layer is the forecasting layer, and that is, do you take everything from the skills layer, reinforce it in the opportunity layer, and then can you see it flow through to the forecasting layer? Things like forecasting criteria. That forecasting criteria should connect all the way back to the shit you taught them in the skills layer. If it doesn't, then again, you don't have a really good sales enablement platform. So what we recognized when we did all that, I told you this was long, is sales organizations have a learning and development organization when it comes to enablement. They don't have a performance enhancement and development organization, because performance enhancement and development relies equally, if not more, on assessing in real time and then measuring against outcomes. We need all three layers. And then in the middle of it, going all the way through, is problem centricity. That is like the foundational ribbon that goes through the entire thing. You start with problem centricity, you go into skills layer, from skills layer, opportunity layer, from opportunity layer into forecasting layer, and that spits out the outcomes.
Is the problem just that companies, is it the lack of structure, is it the lack of processes, or is it the fact that they just get too big and then everything just gets siloed and just more complex and just screws everything up? So how do companies screw this up as far as the three layers, as you simply put it, but poor in execution?
Yeah, so it's actually three layers, right? Or three things. The first one is, yes, they get too big. I mean, but I see it in small companies as well. So it's not a big company challenge. But like anything else, it gets too big, gets too unwieldy. And then once that flywheel gets going, it's hard to bring in. Secondly, which I think is the most important, is most companies are product centric. When you're a product centric selling organization, right? What evidence are you using to demonstrate or highlight what the team knows or what they've been taught, and how do you tie that to an outcome, right? So it's all behavioral based. I'd say to companies all the time, go through your onboarding. What percentage is about the product, right? And then what percentage is about sales competencies? And the sales competencies are stupid shit, like how well can they pitch the product? How will they overcome objections? How do they do a discovery? But then you ask, well, how do you define a discovery? What do you teach them to look for? That all of a sudden it falls apart. So when it's not problem centric, it's very difficult to pull. It's very difficult to pull product centricity all the way to the forecasting outcome. Why? A product centric environment does a very bad job of uncovering the business case. A very bad job of uncovering the business case. So if you don't uncover the business case, what are you measuring somebody on in the opportunity layer? Like literally, what do you have to measure them on when they're actually doing it? And that's what happens. They'll go to Gong and they'll watch a rep. But because product centricity really doesn't have foundation, every manager is doing it different because they're trying to measure behaviors. But product centricity is not behavioral based. Problem centricity is, but not product centricity. So those are really the two big ones. There's a third one that escapes me, and I'll get to it in a second. But when it comes back to me, but those are the two main reasons. They get too big and they're product centric.
You mentioned about the discovery questions, which I'm sure that's a question that you get time and time again. And I know that you teach a lot of this. So what makes a good discovery questions? Like if you're onboarding somebody and you're not telling them to be product centric, how are you teaching them to be problem centric and ask good discovery questions?
So one of the things we teach is it's not about the questions. I mean, it's going to sound counterintuitive because yes, great questions produce the best discovery, but you cannot script the best questions. It's actually the business acumen and the understanding of the business that you're selling into. The more you understand the business you're selling into, by default, the better your questions are. And so sales organizations, in my opinion, need to flip the script. They need to spend the first whatever time, onboarding time you have, let's say you have 90 days to onboard or 30 days to onboard, they need to make that 60-40, 65-35, 70-30 business problems, business assessment, API awareness, executive role awareness, and motivators. You need to know everything you can about their business. And then the question themselves. Yeah.
Well, I typically have deployed that as well, and I think it just comes naturally. It actually helps you, I think, become a better seller, whether you're on video or whether you're in person, and more importantly, when you're in person, because you don't have any cheat sheets to go back to and say like, okay, what's the script that I need to answer that particular question with. So if you know the business inside and out, and you know the business better than the people across the table from you, or just as well, I think that makes you tremendously powerful. It helps you craft better dialogue, better questions, better answers, and it also just shows that you're prepared. You came to the meeting not just to go through the motions and bore the hell out of somebody with an hour long diatribe of your product and your company, and it sounds like a script. That's really the way to win. And obviously you've taught that to a lot of people, and that's just something that I truly enjoy. But it's just something that I think people just, for some reason, they miss. Like even though we talk about this on a regular basis, we talk about, understanding the business, we talk about understanding the products, understanding the problems, understanding the solutions and how they fit into the customer's problems. Everyone just still seems to miss that. But I also feel like it's a crutch. because the company is telling you need to sell the products. And so when you get to against that wall, you fall back on what's most comfortable for you, and it's just talking about the product, and it's not talking about the business because you didn't do the research, because you didn't prepare, which is always just frustrating for me to hear people who ask quote unquote dumb questions because they should be able to find that answer out themselves before they even showed up. Would you agree with that?
I'm going to push back a little here.
Please do.
Yeah. So I agree with you. You should do some research and understand the context of the world you're in. But the type of great discovery questions, you can't, generally speaking, 90% of the time, you can't find that publicly. You can't. Right? So great discovery questions. And the best discovery obviously leverages what you know about the problems, the impacts, the root cause that organization is having and where that organization plays. But then the best discovery questions cause them to reflect. That's how I know someone is good at discovery. They're able to ask questions and get the buyer to reflect. So you want what you ask for a question. There's one question I always say every single discovery call should start with it. Can you tell me what prompted you to take this call today? That's it. I shut up. Ask the question. Now, you get one or two answers, Mark. You get one or two answers. The one you usually get is, we wanted to learn more about your product, or we wanted to learn more about ABC, or we wanted to talk about how we could do XYZ. So they're all future state oriented. So let's just go and say, well, we wanted to learn more about your product, or we wanted to, we want to grow our revenue, or we want to do something like that, right? But the harder one is we want to learn more about your product. So what I do right on the heels of that is I say, okay, is there something going, because it's a deflection, they don't even know. Is there something going on in the organization, or can you walk me through what's happening that has you even considering learning more about sales training and what we do? What's going on? Now, sometimes I may feed them. Are you guys struggling with win rates? Are you not seeing the pipeline you want? Are your BDRs struggling? You're not happy with the convert? Like, I might seed them a couple, but see what I did? I went right back to what the fuck is going on. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to talk to you about my product, because in the absence of what's going on, I'm wasting your time and I'm wasting my time. So let's get this on the table. What's going on?
Tell me about the problem identification chart and how you deploy that in these particular calls.
So the problem identification chart is gold. Now, everybody tries to do it on their own, and every once in a blue moon, someone does a half-assed job. And, ooh, that's kind of impressive. But it's hard as hell. But the problem identification chart is basically, and that should be part of training in the skills layer, very, very early at the beginning. Build one and then train everybody in it. It basically breaks down the problems that your product is solving. It breaks down the products and services that one more time. It breaks down the problems that your product or service solves for your prospects in advance. And think about 3 columns. You have the business problem, you have the impacts, you have the root causes. And I've yet to see this change. Now, if you're a multinational and you have 1,000 products, and you're going to have potentially multiple picks. So if you're, what is that, P&G, Procter & Gamble, yeah, I'm going to have a pick for my Unilever deodorant, and I'm going to have another one for my shaving cream, because they're entirely different products. But most companies, even if they have a lot of products, we have multiple products here, but they still almost always drive to the same set of problems, okay? So there are normally anywhere between 3 and 5 problems your company or your key products solve. So the first thing we do is we uncover what are those business problems. Then from there, we ask ourselves, if those business problems exist, what are the impacts to the organizations? Now, that could be infinite, but it's like 80-20. Like 80% of everybody has the same 20% of problems, and we can deal with the rest later. I mean, impacts, but they're all very similar. And then the last thing we do is we ask you to write down, what are the root causes? What causes those business problems to exist? Now, here's where everybody messes up. So here's a freebie to everybody. Root causes are broken processes and tools. I might stop working. It takes too long to do something. I lack visibility into my reporting. I can't do the reporting. All of those are broken processes. We have distributed systems. Architecture is unwieldy. Everything there is a root cause. 99 to 10 nines. When people try to do this on their own, they list the root causes. They're so embedded in the root causes, they don't know how that funnels into a business problem. When you look at those root causes and you say, well, we lack visibility, or our customers lack visibility into XYZ, they have distributed systems, et cetera, then I'm like, what business problem is that creating? And I make this up. Unplanned downtime. That's a business problem. I can't fix that directly, right? So there's your other hint. You can fix root causes directly. Microphone's broken, I can buy a new microphone, okay? Unplanned downtime, I can say, nope, fix unplanned downtime. Nope, I have to figure out why. Why is there unplanned downtime? See what I did there, Mark? Why? Unplanned downtime is I have poor reliance maintenance schedules. I don't keep the proper inventory in place. I don't have enough people on my team. So I have to fix each of those. And when I fix those, now I can address the unplanned downtime. And so if I'm selling something that addresses the business problem of unplanned downtime, usually every root cause is what my product or service solves. I have extra people. I have a strategy. I have a software. Do you see what I'm saying? I have something that solves that. And the last piece of this is you measure it. Unplanned downtime. How long? What machines? How much money? See what I'm doing here? Then you measure that and you say, okay, because of this, what's the impact? Lost 2 of our biggest clients recently. Or better yet, it could be a health system. We got fined for being out of compliance. That's the impact. Now imagine having all of this written down before your very first salesperson makes a call, and you tell that young salesperson or old salesperson, memorize the F out of this. So now when they get on a discovery call, they're not all over the place. They're not like, tell me what keeps you up at night. They literally do what I say. They say, hey, walk me through what prompted you to take this call today. And the buyer says, oh, we just wanted to learn what you do. And then you say, well, when you say just learn, was there something in particular that prompted you to want to learn about what we do? Are you struggling with unplanned downtime? Well, as a matter of fact, we are. See what I did right there? Dude, it's fucking laid out. You taught your team on it. Then say it, and the customer says, yes, we are. And then you say, could you help me understand a little bit about your current reliability maintenance strategy? In 2 minutes. In 2 minutes, I am neck deep in their business, and I only had to ask 3 questions, and I was guided by my pick. It blows my mind that my dumb ass in 2020 figured this out before anybody else. Chandler, Beckham, anybody. Go and figure it out. You start with assessing your client's business before you teach your reps anything, and you make them memorize that shit, and then they build their entire discovery trying to find the problems on that pick. And if they're not there, you pack it up and say, thanks for the time, but we can't help you, but I give you a recommendation to someone who can.
So since 2020, what's changed in that particular process? Is it the same just because humans haven't changed, or is it changed because of AI or something else, or is it basically the same as it was?
It will never change. Because that's how we buy. That's how we change. That's how people process change. So if anything, the AIs will just get better at helping you reflect on your environment. The AIs will be better at asking the questions or understanding the business. So then when the AIs take over, whether it's in emails or calls or actually in person like this, they will do a far better job of being able to diagnose what's going on in your organization based on your answers. That's where salespeople fall down today. A buyer will say something and the rep won't understand the business component of that and won't know what question to ask. But that AI will be like, oh, they just said that. And the AI will quickly jump to something deep in the business. And the buyer's like, oh, reflect. Oh, yes, I didn't even think about that. Great point.
So the new book is about prospecting. So how can artificial intelligence help with prospecting? Or I guess, how does it make it worse?
Depends on how you apply it. But the making it worse, I look at AI as people. I mean, probably people don't want to hear that, but I look at AI as just an extension of people, right? So what I'm seeing right now is a lot of AI software companies, or whatever you want to call it, who are building these things, are building AI just like doing the same thing they did to salespeople. And they're making them do the wrong thing. So they're building AIs to overcome objections and teach it to overcome objections. They're teaching them to pitch the product, et cetera. But they're actually not teaching them an actual methodology to stop and assess the business element. So they're not, look, I wouldn't care if it's us. If I was building an AI anything for sales right now, I would pick one or multiple methodologies and train on those methodologies. Just like you should train salespeople when you hire them on methodologies, but we don't. They're building AIs just like the average idiot salesperson, overcome objections, address negotiation, but they're not giving the AI a foundational framework to actually do that work. Does that make any sense?
I think so, because I've always looked at AI as just another tool, kind of like Google, but it depends on, like a hammer. It depends on how you use it. Depends on whose hands you put that in and how they're going to deploy it. Because if you use AI, and I think the way you're describing, and you put some guide rails around it, you put a foundation to it, you put better information in there, you're going to get a better output. No different than how we used to Google things. I used to always say, like, I was a good Googler, and there's always people that just didn't know how to use it properly. And the same thing with the hammer. A hammer in my hands is probably going to be different than a hammer in your hands, as far as just the output that you get out of it.
Here's a slight difference. Google was flat. So yes, if you could write a better Google request, it was still flat. Google really wasn't thinking, and it gave you a bazillion options and you had to scroll through them. Now, when you do this, the AI does a bunch of thinking on its own in the background. And so if you're going to build an AI SDR system, let's say, right, and you're telling everybody how great this SDR system is, what framework did you give it to write the email? So as a perfect example, hint everybody, with gap prospecting, one of the things to our framework is we recognize that there are two sales to get a buyer to open an email. The first sale is intrigue. Can you create intrigue to get the buyer to stop and say, oh, all right, I want to read this. Or if it's a cold call, all right, I'll give you another 30 seconds. I'm intrigued, right? I'm intrigued. The next sale, because you can't get the next one without the first one. So once you get them intrigued and say, yes, all right, I'll buy, right? That's a small sale, but it's a buy. Then you got to get them interested to react to the call to action. So if it's an email, to click on something, download something, write back, whatever. Or if it's in a cold call, to say, all right, I'll have a meeting with you. That was interesting enough. You intrigued me. Now I'm interested enough. I will give you half hour, whatever. If you don't teach the AI that, it won't know to do that. That's my point. Like that model in itself is something we teach, and then we describe what intrigue actually is, because there is science behind intrigue. So in gap prospecting, we don't just say build intrigue. We tell you what the hell it is. We tell you what the 4 ways to do it are. We tell you how to do it with what part of the brain it triggers. So if you don't teach an AI to do that, it's not going to do that.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of like back to my other example. You kind of have to understand how something is supposed to work, kind of what the inputs to put into it in order to make it work correctly. So I guess back to my hammer example, there's different ways you can hold a hammer in order to get that nail driven. So if I hold it upside down, I'm going to do a shitty job. Or if I put in a crappy, Google request, top 10 restaurants near me, that's not going to give me a good result. So, and the same thing with AI. If you don't understand, like in the back end of how it's going to work and put some parameters around it, or at least maybe do a little bit of research before you just put in these blind requests and hopefully you get a right answer. That's the other problem, is that a lot of people, I think they probably get an output or an answer and they're just like, okay, they told me that's what it is. So instead of questioning it again or asking a better question or understanding, like, where did you get that answer from? Just asking more questions, asking better questions, understanding maybe it's not a linear approach. At least that's happening in the background. There is a dynamic aspect to AI, and understanding that and putting in better questions in order to get better results, just like you would in a...
I'm sorry, I misinterpreted. You're talking about ChatGPT. Oh my God, ChatGPT or Claude. You're talking about that. I was talking about the AI companies who are building the AI agents for us. So whether that's SDR, whether that's email writing, I was talking about that. And I'm saying those organizations are not building their agents, not building their tools on in my opinion, a sound foundation. They're not going out and saying, to your point, what is the best way to swing a hammer? What type of hammer do I swing? Do I swing a finishing hammer when I'm finishing, a mason hammer when I'm mason? You see what I'm saying? And they don't know, and they're just saying a hammer is a hammer, and they're building these whole agents a company are buying in their organization to do some of the work, and they're just putting more dumb salespeople in front of the customer.
I'm surprised that you could actually label or the names of hammers. I don't, but so that impresses me and surprised me. But
yes, there are braiding hammers, there are finishing hammers. Yes, there are multiple. Yes, there are. Mm-hmm.
But I think we're both saying the same thing. But there is a convergence of where you get garbage out, because I've used a lot of AI tools, AI software platforms, and sure, they're building AI solutions, but it's the same thing. I've used a lot where I put in a prompt or whatever it is, and it's not ChatGPT, it's an AI-driven solution, let's just call it. But the output's still garbage, and you still don't know me, and you still don't know really the questions and the problems that I'm trying to solve. So I think it's still a human-built tool with human problems, and then you have human input that creates more crappy outcomes, if that makes sense. And especially if we're talking about young SDRs that are in there, and they're just kind of going through the motions. It's garbage in, garbage out, for lack of a better phrase.
Yes, to solve that problem, we actually wrote a prompt. So when people buy gap prospecting, we wrote a prompt 4 reps that can do almost everything for them, taking into consideration intrigue, problem centricity, trust, problem-centric, like all of it. It's all built in, targeting around the problem, driving intrigue, et cetera. So they just have to basically put in their business. They have to fill out their own problem identification chart. We force them to do that at the beginning of the book, but we leverage the problem identification chart. Then it doesn't matter. We give them the whole prompt to your point, and we tested it over and over and over, and it's fucking impressive.
Is it just one prompt, or do they have like options?
Oh, it's one prompt.
One prompt.
Now,
Nice.
The options are to customize for your business. So option 1, watch this. That's an interesting question. It goes back to why gap selling is so good and gap prospecting. Once you do your own problem identification chart, that narrows it down. You see what I'm saying? So you do your problem identification chart. In other words, what are the business problems we solve? What are the impacts to an organization if those problems exist? What are the root causes? You put that into your chat or your Claude, whatever the hell it is. Then we give you the prompt, and then we do things like what we call symptoms and catalysts. So we force you to figure out what your symptoms and catalysts are. So then you put in the problem identification chart, you put in the symptoms, you put in the catalysts, and then we give you the prompt that tells it to trigger the AFC and the OCC. Don't worry about that. It means the psychological elements of the brain. For intrigue, you have to put in who your buyer is, who you're going after. So if it's a CRO or if it's a CSO or whatever. So now you tell it to find the problems that you take your pick. You tell it to attach it to this type of personality. Then you use the things you found from a symptom and catalyst in a search. We saw this or you saw that, and then it does it all for you.
Nice. Looking forward to that.
It's powerful.
For gap prospecting, what's something that I probably would learn that I guess I wouldn't expect to learn from gap prospecting?
Catalyst and symptoms.
Catalyst and symptoms. And tell me more about that.
A catalyst is something that could happen that would suggest it would create a problem. Like what could be a catalyst to a problem? Something in the marketplace. So let's just say you sell cybersecurity to banks, and let's just say a mandate comes to the government that says if you get breached and customers lose their money, the fines are XYZ, or you get a ding in some sort of, I'm making this up, some sort of ranking, and if you get that ranking, you can't do certain things. So we know that's a catalyst that you're probably going to be now in the market for ensuring that your cybersecurity is up to par because you can't afford it. You can't afford to to have a breach. That's a catalyst. A symptom is something that suggests that you might actually be experiencing something that could mean the problem exists. You know what I'm saying? So a symptom could be somebody hiring a shit ton more cybersecurity analysts or what's going on? That's a symptom that something could be going on. So you use that to go back to the problem identification chart and write emails that say, I see you're hiring people. Normally when we see this is what's going on. Is that what's happening with you? Are you open to a conversation? Blah, blah, blah. So symptoms and catalysts.
Nice. I love that. Looking forward to that. Let's pivot over to our most popular segment of the Burn the Playbook podcast, which is Burn It or Build It, rapid fire segment where I'm going to give you a topic. You tell me burn it or build it and a brief reason why. Are you ready?
Brief is the hard part.
Well, you can be brief. You can be long. We have as long as you need. Number one, daily activity quotas as the main goal for sales teams. Burn it or build it.
As the main goal, burn it. The main goal should be the outcome. So the main goal is if you want people to do 2 meetings a day or 2 a week or whatever, that should be the goal, right? I don't mind you watching or assessing what does it take to hit that goal. But as I interpret the question, if my activity is what I'm measured on, and let's say you tell me to make 100 calls a day and I make 100 calls a day and I get 6 meetings and I'm only supposed to do 1, and the next day I only do 40 calls, don't you fucking dare get in my face that I didn't make 100. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. And I don't want to hear this, oh, you could do 12. Yeah, I could, but you know what? I didn't today. So no, that was me too. I always had managers I would always make my number, but didn't always do it the way they wanted me to. And then they would get in my grill and I was like, I don't have time for you. I don't have time for you. No, I'm getting the outcome. So get off my back.
Get off your back. Burn that. Number 2, buyer intent metrics.
If they're good, leverage them. Like that buyer. I mean, if my world,
how do you know if they're good?
Yeah. In my world, buyer intent is symptoms and catalysts, right? So if it's a symptom or catalyst that I identify, like again, we do a lot of upfront work with prospecting. We know what those symptoms are. We know what the catalysts are. So to us, that's buyer intent. But a traditional buyer intent, burn it. It's too correlated. I want real problem-centric buyer intent.
Well, we could just use Brent Adamson's third option, which is rebuild it, since he created a new category for this particular
I like
segment.
that. Rebuild it. Yeah, I love it.
Number 3, phone first prospecting versus email, social. It's phone first.
Burn it. Every industry is different, right? There are some industries you could probably live entirely on LinkedIn. So why don't you just live on LinkedIn? There's others like construction. You'll never get anything on LinkedIn. So why would you do that, right? I think phone first for things like dentists and doctors' offices is brilliant, right? That you can call them at 7:40 in the morning and get the lead dentist, and right. But then that shit's not going to work for a CRO. You're never going to get through the CRO on the phone ever. So you might as well roll with email. So now I believe in multimodal, and then you determine what works best for your clientele and the product you sell.
Agree with that 100%. Number 4, multi-threading on day 1.
Oh, burn it to the ground. Come on, man. Come on. I mean, okay. So I heard day 1 as my first discovery call. I'm okay with multi-threading from an account management, or what's what I'm looking for? Account-based selling. If you're going to account-based sell, I am absolutely okay with multi-threading, because what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to hit them all, and whoever responds first, I'm going to go for. But if you're talking, I hit someone up and I'm talking, I'm not going to start telling who else do I need to talk to and all that. No. You just stay with them, get to the problem, and the problem will guide you to where you need to go from there.
Some people hear multi-threading, they read about it, and they're like, I should do that all the time. So that's the reason for the question.
But okay, so to your point, Mike, and I know you want to do fast. This is a perfect example of why sales is all screwed up. Multi-threading is not selling. That's transactional. That's a transaction element. The difference between gap selling and every other selling is gap selling is problem-centric, and that's change management. Who the decision maker is, the buying process, and we build that in there, but it comes later. All of that stuff is transaction management. And if you're managing the transaction before you've quantified the problem and the cost of inaction, you are wasting everybody's time.
Makes sense. Well said. Number 5, personalized openings pulled from a buyer's public post.
Say that again.
Personalized openings pulled from a buyer's public post. Hey, I saw that you went skiing. I love skiing too. How about you come listen to my demo? Watch.
Yeah. No, I don't. What is it? I'd say build it, but build it correctly. So rebuild it. Like what's his name said. I love how you did that. I saw you posted about not skiing. I love skiing. No, I saw you posted about skiing and your last trip to Vail. Over here at Winter Park, we do these things and more. So I'd love to talk about maybe considering your next skiing thing at Winter Park. That's okay. So if what you're pulling is germane to what you're selling, all day long. If it's to try to just make a connection, I like skiing too. So, hey, what do you think about robust cybersecurity? No.
Number 6. So what was that about? That was a rebuild it.
That was a rebuild. As long as it's connected
That was a
to
rebuild it.
what they're talking about. You see people talking all the time about, I saw your post and trying to find a fantastic selling methodology. Would you mind me asking what prompted you that post? Are you considering one internally? Is the one you're at work? That's all day long, bro. That's a catalyst or a symptom. Sorry, that's a symptom.
Number 6, long form sales emails. I've seen some recent hot takes on this, that longer is better. Burn that.
Burn them. No one has time. No one has
time.
Nope.
Number 7, video messages.
Build it all day long. I don't know why more people don't do it. Love it. Love it. If you want to do a long form, do it that way. You can start talking, have personality, ask questions like, be good. Keep it for a minute and a half.
How long should a video message be?
Ideally.
10 seconds, 3 minutes?
No. Yes, it doesn't seem like it. If you're really good and engaging, 30 seconds.
Elevator pitch.
You can go a minute if you can really drive home and got some good stuff to talk to. Like, hey, John, I saw that trip to Vail you took where you hated the lift lines. Right over here at Winter Park, we're having a big, I don't know, fucking whatever, sale on condominiums. The lift lines are only 1/3 of the period of time. We have just as much skiing. I saw you said you really like this and this. Let me show you how we, the bumps we have, the runs we have, the type of whatever. And I just go to it, right? Love to talk to you about how we might be able to plan your next ski trip based on what I heard at Vail and why I think you'll like it. So yeah, that's great.
Sounds good. Number 8, text message outreach messages.
Burn it. Once you establish a relationship, I'm chill. And I'm sure some millennials and Gen Zs are like, what are you, crazy? But no, if I don't know you and you come across my phone, That's probably where
It's
I'm kind of
over.
old, but it's over. It's
over.
Mhm.
Number 9, gifting to open doors.
No, burn it. Okay.
No?
The
Not a
way
fruit basket? What about gloves for the skiing trip?
Yes. So that's where I was going to. Build it. I leave it to Brent. Rebuild it. So do not send me $100 Amazon. My time is a fuck ton worth more than $100. That I'm insulted. I don't have time for you. But if the gift isn't about the value, but it's about the creativity, or so remember I talked to you about there are elements that create intrigue or interest, and there's very real psychology behind that. One of the elements of psychology is called surprise. So if you are a skier and I send you a pair of customized ski gloves and I'm with Winter Park and I'm trying to get you to consider having your event here all day long, right? Now, the message behind this to be problem-centric. So that was a surprising way to, see what I did? A surprising way to intrigue you through surprise. You are now surprised. That created intrigue. Now I brought you into the interest section. Now it's up to me for my message to create enough interest to create a meeting. We call it the offer to ask ratio. Read the book, right? So yes, in that regard, I'm a huge fan, but it takes creativity. It has to be relevant and has to not be gimmicky.
Number 10. My favorite is breakup emails. I've sent you 3 emails and the 4th
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah?
Build it. I'm good with that.
Okay.
As long as they're respectful. Yeah, 100%.
What if it's an AI-generated breakup email because the first 3 were as well?
Yeah, okay. Well, go back to AI. If that AI was built on gap selling, I'll still build it. If that AI is built on traditional selling methods and with no real framework, no real methodology, then burn it to the ground.
Sounds good. Love it. You get the final word. What's one contrarian move a sales leader can make in the next 30 days to lift win rate for 2026 Q1?
Let's start with knowing them. Let's start with that. Let's start with actually knowing your win rates over at least a 3 to 5 year period, if not for the last 10 years, but at least a 3 to 5 year period. Know your win rates by rep, and then have them ranked or at least evaluated. What is my highest win rate? What is my lowest win rate? What can I do to go in and see what's going on there? And from that, begin to start running your organization as a performance-based sales organization. And performance-based does not mean on quota. Put quota aside. I want to see things like win rate, average contract value, average time to close, pipeline being added by rep. And I want to see what skill sets are behind those who are doing well and those who aren't. If I have a methodology, then I want to see the correlation between who is executing that methodology and who isn't, and does it actually correlate to the better outcomes. If it doesn't correlate at all, then you're not even using the methodology, so it's time to retrain them or get rid of it. But that's what I want to do. Make your organization a performance-based organization by looking at the behaviors behind the numbers, not just the numbers.
Well said. Where can people find more information about gap prospecting for 2026?
Obviously, Amazon. And you go to salesgrowth.com. www.salesgrowth.com. That's our website. You can find me on LinkedIn, just Keenan . Because they wouldn't let me put nothing for my last name. You can run gap prospecting in the search, and that will come up. It's pretty easy.
You're all over the place. Love it. Well, appreciate you joining the podcast, and looking forward to chatting with you again.
Thank you, Mark. Man, I appreciate it. Good work.
Cheers. Thanks.
Yep.
That's how you burn the playbook. If this conversation fired you up, don't let it end here. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Share this episode with someone who's tired of playing by the old rules. And if you're ready to challenge your own sales approach, let's connect. Find me on LinkedIn at Marc Crosby, or head to digitalrebelsconsulting.com to see how we help B2B teams win differently. Until next week, keep burning what's not working and keep building what is.